Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I love a dive watch, I love a bargain watch, I love bargain dive watches, and I know a lot of you do as well. I think for less than $100 US, arguably the best all-round watch that you can put on your wrist is a budget diver. And I've reviewed some crackers on the channel to date. Arguably one of the best value dive watches, one of the best value watches that I've looked at full stop on the channel over the last 3 years has been the Pagani Designs PD1639. An insane set of specifications for the money, including a Seiko automatic movement, sapphire crystal, ceramic bezel insert, stainless steel construction, solid link bracelet with screw links, and a Rolex style clasp with flip-flop adjustment. All for less than $70 US if you buy it on special. But it's big. It's 43 millimeters in diameter, which is personally too big for me as a daily wear, and I think too big for a lot of you as well. I know a lot of people were hoping Pagani would release the same watch, but in a smaller 40mm case diameter. And they sort of have and they sort of haven't. They have released a watch with 40mm diameter, the PD1651, which has all of those specifications, but it's not just a straight Submariner homage. It's definitely a Rolex, but there's a bit of Yachtmaster in there, and I think there's a bit of GMT Master too as well. It's still great value, currently $80 on the AliExpress anniversary sale. I'll obviously leave links to both of those watches in the description of the video. The eternal question remains though, is it any good? Let's flip the camera and find out. But is it any good? Before you rush for your credit card to buy 3 of these things, I suggest you hang with me for the duration of the video. These Pagani design watches are almost unparalleled, unrivaled in terms of the sheer specs per dollar. I don't think there's anything else that offers you more for less than a Pagani. I remember 3 years ago when I first started this channel, I reviewed a Phoebus Submariner homage, and I was amazed by the specifications that it offered. A Miyota movement, sapphire crystal, pushpin bracelet and a press clasp, yours for $160. This Pagani wipes the floor with that one for half of that price. But, and there is a but, that money is spread very, very thinly across the watch. There's always a few areas with Paganis that I feel could be better in terms of the quality control, usually the bezel and the clasps, and in this case it's the bezel and the clasps. But it looks alright, doesn't it? A couple of different colourways. There's a kind of blue-black James Cameron Deep Sea Dweller fade there. We've got the relief bezel insert from a Yachtmaster. Dial layout is pure Submariner, and I think that case is very much like the GMT Master 2. I've compared this one side by side with one of Mr. X's Submariners. It's not quite as big as the Super case. I think it's a little bit smaller than that. Now, they are available on a bracelet or a Pagani NATO strap. Don't bother with the NATO, it's junk, and they give you a 22mm NATO strap for a 20mm watch. Bit of a fail there. Now, call me a cynical man, but I'm going to start with a sapphire crystal check today. On the right, the rather unconventional, but definitely sapphire Gerlach Cosmonauta. Nice strong read from that one. On the left, the much more conventional, but definitely Hardlex equipped Seiko Samurai, 0 bars. In the middle, the Pagani Design Explorer, because they felt they needed one more Rolex reference in there. It is definitely a piece of sapphire there as well. So 40mm in diameter, just over 12mm thick and 47mm lug tip to lug tip. 20mm lugs, as I mentioned, tapering down to 16, back up to 18 at the clasp. And sized up for my 7-inch wrist, this one weighs in at exactly what you would expect it to weigh in, 145 grams. So stainless steel case, crown, bezel and full stainless steel bracelet with solid links, solid end links. We've got screw links in there, and we do have the Pagani Design signature Rolex copy clasp. High polished mid links as well here, so you don't get the full brush. Again, another nod perhaps to the Yachtmaster. Pagani Design logo on the top of the clasp there. Fold that one over and it is a proper Rolex style clasp. Now here we have the kind of easy link system. So we have a kind of flip flop, rather stiff initially, but it does mean that it's less likely to pop off your wrist. There is micro adjusting here. I'll show you that a bit later on. Not all that easy to access though. The clasp, as I said, definitely one of the areas where Pagani have overextended themselves, shall we say. No complaints about the overall standard of finishing on the watch though, just what you'd expect from one of these Rolex copies. High polished sides, transitioning to brushed on the lugs. Crown guards here, we've got a Pagani design logo on the end of the crown, nice and easy to grip there, and very nice machined bezel, I must say. Kind of two different finishes there. It's a high polish on the upper bezel surface, a brush on the lower bezel surface, and all of those little nicks are machined very nicely indeed, as is that ceramic bezel insert, relief bezel, very much like the Yachtmaster as I mentioned. One thing to note though is because those Arabics protrude rather than are recessed, you do feel them. You do get the occasional sharp edge, and from the triangle as well. It's not particularly noticeable, but just something to mention. Zoomed in on the dial, and it is indeed Rolex's greatest hits. Kind of classic Submariner layout. We've got a nice sunburst effect blue-black fade on this one, and it's a sunburst effect all black on the other one. So the classic layout, triangle at 12, batons at 6 and 9. Usable Cyclops covering the date window at 3, and circular applied indices everywhere else. Printed minute track around the outer edge, and printed Pagani design logo with the Explorer branding above the pinion, and automatic water resistant 10 bar 100 meters. Above the index at 6, just a nod to the Seiko NH35 in the back of this one with the Japanese movement either side of that 6 index. Handset, also classic Mercedes, just what you'd expect. They are a little bit plain though, flat, no bevel on those ones. Now there is some lume on the hands and the indices, but one of the common bugbears of sub $100 dive watches is that the lume is the first thing to go from the budget, and Pagani designs no exception in this case. It's all right initially, but it fades far too quickly. And one problem with the relief bezel is you don't get a lume pip on this one. I don't think many people were taking this one diving anyway, were they? Case back is display and screw down, again helping with that 100 meters of water resistance, and there is the plucky, venerable Seiko NH35 beating away in the back of this one. There's a reason that these 4R movements, the NH movement series, are everywhere, and that's because they are available, they're plentiful, they're reliable, and they're cheap, and you usually get a pretty decent set of numbers, much like this one from them. 21,600 vibrations per hour, so that relatively slow beat rate means that you shouldn't be servicing these ones as regularly as a high beat auto. They also have the Seiko Diashock system built in, meaning that your watch should be able to take a couple of knocks without damaging the movement. A great movement to find in a watch for under $100. And once you get these watches on wrist, they wear like every other Rolex Submariner homage that I've reviewed over the last 3 years. There's a reason that these watches sell in big numbers, that these cheap homages are very, very popular. There's a reason that Rolex haven't fundamentally screwed around with the design of the Submariner in decades, and that's because a 40mm stainless sports watch at 150 grams wears magnificently for most people, and this one's no exception. I quite like the stealthy black on black design of this one, certainly a bit different, and in some ways that offsets the high polished mid-link of the bracelet. Still pretty legible even from afar, and as I said, that is a highly usable Cyclops, one of the most usable, most magnified date window Cyclopses that I've seen on one of these watches. Outside, and you're not getting any anti-reflective coating on the sapphire crystal for your $80, just be thankful that it is indeed sapphire, but the watch still maintains a fair degree of legibility because of the inherent legibility of that Rolex dial layout. On wrist, not much curvature to these cases, but 47mm lug tip to lug tip means it wears very nicely indeed. Moans and niggles. Well, I rather set myself up for this earlier on, didn't I? Lume, as discussed, is not fantastic, but I'll kind of forgive it the lume. The bezel, 60 click, which I have no problem with, and it sounds great. Very nice noise to it, but I'm just not convinced by the action. There's quite a bit of wobble on it, and I'm not sure that it quite lines up as I would like it to, either one way or the other. So the bezel, much like a lot of the other Pagani design watches that I've looked, not one of its strong points. And then there's this clasp. Good on Pagani for trying to give us as much for our money as possible, but I think perhaps they have tried a bit too hard with this one. I would prefer to see a more conventional, a kind of hybrid mechanism if it was possible. Okay, let's put this one on the deck and you can see what I mean here. So there are micro adjusts. You can see those recesses in the wall of the clasp there, and they've tried to copy the Easy Link system, so the kind of flip-flop system that you get on a lot of these Oyster bracelets with a real Rolex. You pop this one out. Oh, very stiff though. I guess that'll loosen up with time. And once you pop it out, that exposes the spring bar. You can then get a Bergeon or other spring bar tool in there, and you can use the micro adjust that way. And there you are, mine just broke. Now, this is an easy fix for me. I've got plenty of better quality spring bars lying around the house, specifically for occasions like this when I pick up cheap watches and one of them break. But this is pretty much a case in point. I think they've just tried to do a bit too much with these watches and they spread themselves a bit too thin as a consequence. At the end of the day, it's only a spring bar, and I've had spring bars fail in much more expensive watches than this one. But I guess it served as a reminder for me. It should serve as a reminder for all. You get a lot of watch for your money, but your money only goes so far. So there you have it, the Pagani Designs PD1651, another spec monster for not an awful lot of money. Perhaps a little bit more money than I was expecting though. I would be much more comfortable recommending this to you at $70 rather than $80 on special. Perhaps not quite what we were expecting though, perhaps not quite the 40mm variant of the 1639 that I think would have probably sold in bigger numbers than this one. But I do quite like it. I like the black dial, the black bezel. It's got a little bit of stealth about it in that colour combination. Or if you've always fancied a James Cameron but don't have 8-inch wrists and $10,000, then you can go for the blue-black fade dial. As always though, do so with both eyes wide open. You get a lot on paper for your money, but sometimes the money is spread rather far and wide. I would be happier if they'd gone for a conventional clasp, loom, bezel action, etc. Not quite amazing, but considering the price, it's pretty good. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.